let's do a market recap. I just recently did a 3-day market. And let's talk about if I made a profit, how much my booth was, how much I sold, what were my best sellers, and let's just get right into it. Hi, I'm EJ, the owner and creator behind EJ's Creations, and then let's just get into the video. I'm looking down because I have my notes here of each day of how much I sold. But let's talk about the market in general. It was a holiday market. It was a 3-day market, and I mentioned that I was notified 2 days, or I don't know if I did mention, I was notified 2 weeks prior to the, I said 2 days, what the world? 2 weeks prior to the actual market, and I wasn't told that I could take my handmade items and my, t-shirts and sweatshirts, which is just fine. But I really wanted to take my crocheted items just because I wanted to like clear out that inventory. So anyways, that being said, we go and we set up, we do the market. There was another crocheter there, but her crochet items were totally different from what I do. And it looked like she did like the really bulky yarn where, she did chunky stuff, right? Like she did chunky blankets and scarves, things in that nature, not what I do. And the knitter, of course, she did beanies and scarves, which is completely different from what I do. But nonetheless, if you saw one of my videos that I did a short of just my setup, you would have seen that I snuck in some of my crochet pumpkins. And then the second day I brought in my Christmas trees and my Grinches, just because, they're decor, if you will. And I thought that would bring attention to my booth, right? Not just what was there, but then people would go into the booth, not just walk around the booth. So, so with this market, let's go ahead and talk about the market. I can't believe how many alcohol vendors were there. Like, I am not kidding you. There were so many that I was talking to another vendor, and she said that there were so many people, sampling the alcohol, but they were already like, walking around kind of buzzed. And then there was a CBD seller there, and she said that they would go because there was like 3 alcohol booths in her row, and the CBD was right across from her. So she had entertainment. She had free entertainment. And so she said they would hop to the alcohol and then go to the CBD, and they were giving them free gummies. And I'm like, what in the world? Like, seriously? In the row that I was in, I think there was 1 alcohol. Like, there was a lot of alcohol. I think in every row there had to have been at least one or more than 1. And I was just like, what happened to this? This was supposed to be a holiday market. And then they had a lot of vendors that, and I think, honestly, I think they were trying to fill spots, and I'll tell you why in just a bit. There was a lot of like, people that sell at like flea markets, right? Like the toys and things like that were already ready-made kind of stuff. And so I felt like they just were filling spots, and maybe that's why they had all those people that were there, like that really didn't fit into a holiday, if you will. So I was kind of disappointed to see that. But in talking to a lot of the vendors, they said that there was at least 12 new vendors there at this show. So that tells you a little bit about what's going on. Either it's in the economy or that particular market. But that particular market this was the 36th year, and that show, that market has been going on, and it was advertised in the news. It had really good advertisement. I just feel like the vendor part of it wasn't really fitting for a holiday. I mean, there was a few of us that really had true holiday things and giftable things, so that, because I know when I go to a market, I'm looking for particular gifts, unique gifts, something different, or if I can get like a whole, set of something, then or a theme of something, right? I'm looking at those kind of things. So when I do markets, when I'm actually a vendor at a market, I have that in mind. And that's why you'll see that I don't do a lot of holiday things. just because I don't want to have that inventory. I want to make things that are like giftable. So I won't do like, you know, holiday book covers or book sleeves or full cozies or, you know, anything like that. I will do something that it could be giftable for a whole, you know, for all year purpose, not just a certain season. So that's what that was going on with this vendor, I mean with this market. And the other thing that I felt for the price of the booth that we paid, it was a lot, okay? And I'm going to give you that number later in the video. But we also had to pay for parking. Vendors had to pay for parking. And I was just like, this is absurd, because the amount, it was already high, and then we had to pay $10 per day per vendor car. So Sunday I had to take my car and my husband had to take his car so that we can load. And you know, there's $20 right there. On Saturday we just took the one car. On Friday we got lucky because the parking attendants weren't there, and the guy had told me that they were at another market, and so they couldn't, you know, they couldn't be at this one on Friday. So everyone got lucky and didn't have to pay for parking. But you know, already we paid $30 for the weekend, and we probably could have walked, but here in Oregon it's pretty cold. You know, it is pretty cold, and I'm already sick. So I'm like, I wasn't trying to go and get more sick by walking in the cold. So so we drove. But yeah, it was just, it was something. Would I do this market again? Probably not, just because I wasn't feeling, I don't know, again, it could be the economy as well, but I wasn't feeling holiday-ish there. I want to participate in a market where I've done before, where we're all like, there's giftable things, you know. Yeah, I'm sure that, you know, I'm honest, if I'm being honest, I don't even think in Texas I did a market where there was alcohol sold at the market. I've done a sip-in shop, but the sip-in shops were that they were at the hotel, did their sipping, got on a bus, then went shopping to, you know, the market. That's the type of market. That's the only type that I've done where there was alcohol involved, but it was the alcohol was at the hotel, not at the market. So this was different for me. This was my third market here in Oregon, and I have to be honest with you, my experience with the Oregon market is not good. It's quite pricey, and I don't see the turnout. You know, you know, for me, like, I would watch other small business owners, and they would do markets in Oregon or Washington or, you know, in different states, and then they're like, oh yeah, we, you know, we made so much money and blah blah blah, but they don't tell you the amount. And I don't know if they're, you know, I'm not saying that they're lying, but I want to know numbers, because if I'm a small business and I'm watching your channel, obviously I'm watching it because I'm trying to find inspiration, trying to find where these markets are that are going to bring my small business, you know, profit and bring it growth. And so that is why when I do these videos, I want to be very true, you know, very transparent, so that you can understand if you're in the area or if you're moving to the area, you know. Now I've heard there are some places that that the market is profitable, but it's not in Oregon. I think, yeah, there were none of them that they mentioned to me are here in Oregon. I'd have to drive 3 to 4 hours. And, you know, I've done it before. I drove 3.5 hours when I lived in Texas. I lived in Austin, Texas, and did markets in Houston, only because I knew the Houston market, you know, I always did really well. But yeah, so let's talk about the numbers, okay? Keep in mind, so let's go back and let's talk about the market a little bit. So the market on Friday was completely dead. Like, they had like senior citizens, and then like they had those little group communities that take like the special needs people out into like these kind of places, and that's what Friday was about. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, they need to go shopping, and that was great. The other thing with the market that I noticed was there was security. They did have security. So I was kind of thinking, and janitors throughout, the janitors were clean throughout the market. And so the bathrooms were clean. I mean, it's in a nice area to begin with. And, but the bathrooms were clean, the floors were clean, but the security was there. And at first, when we first, you know, Friday, when we got there and we were ready to do the market, I was like, why is there security? There was like at least 3. But then later when I started to walk the floor, and I was like, well, this is why, because there's alcohol and there's CBD here. And I'm like, no wonder there's security here. And I was trying to justify in my mind why the fee was so high. And maybe it's because we're paying for their services. I don't know, right? But nonetheless, it was, you know, and it was the organization of it was good. The loading and unloading was good. All of that was good. That was, you know, a good experience. It was just the market itself wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and what the rest of the vendors thought it was going to be when they signed up. They had a concession stand there. Because it was a convention center, so there was like just, you know, they have that one little food area, and that was it. But, you know, normally when I do markets, I take my own food, just because, number one, I have to be in like a special diet, and you know, I'm not trying to eat horrible all the time, and I'm not trying to eat fried foods. I don't want to end up in the hospital. Let's put it that way. So let's go ahead and talk about the market. Let's talk about Friday. So Friday, as I mentioned, you know, it was more of the senior citizens and the special needs, you know, more of the community, like that, those little tiny communities like that. I don't know what you call them, so I'm just going to say community because I'm not sure. But I remember my brother working with the special needs, and he would pick them up in the bus and take them to the store, or take them to the library, or take them to the park. Like, he would do those things. And so that's why I'm saying it's like a community, but I don't know the proper wording or the, you know, saying for that. But anyways, let's talk about Friday. So Friday sales were really, really low, and it was pretty sad. I mean, everybody was pretty sad. But for me, I sold $52 on Friday. Yeah, I was like, wow, I hope it's better on Saturday and Sunday, because this is like sad. $52. And then on Saturday, it was like mid-morning, the rush came in. And I was like, yes, this is a market. Let's list out. But a lot of people weren't really buying. They were more sipping the free alcohol. They weren't buying. And it was like, you know, what, you know, you had to pay to get in. So why not make use of your money? Well, I guess they were, right? With the alcohol, because alcohol is expensive. But anyway, on Saturday, I made $332. So I was like, okay, you know, maybe if I can make the same amount on Sunday, you know, we'll call it even. But I didn't. On Sunday, I made $293. Still, you're like, girl, that's something. It is. And I'm grateful for the experience, and I'm grateful to have met other vendors and, you know, hopefully gained more customers online. And that's really what we do these markets for, right? Especially if we have an online store, we want to promote our online store and bring customers to it. So, and I think that's how I went, you know, well, I went in thinking it was a true market, a holiday market, not a true market, a true holiday market, but it wasn't. And I have to tell you, it was just, yeah, something else. Now, I had, how much inventory did I take? $7,700 I took. And out of that, you could see what I made. People always say, take the amount of inventory that you want to make. But that's not necessarily true, because I took over $7,000 of inventory, and that's, you do the math, you'll see what I've made, right? And, you know, plus if you're using Square or Shopify, there's fees for that using the you know, the little POS system, or I don't know if it's POS, that little, you know, I use Square, so I use the little thing to be able to accept credit cards, and there's fees with that. So with that being said, I think I made like $630 or $35. Okay, it's a good amount, right? If my booth was $100 or even $150, even if it was $200. But my booth fee was $650. No, 630. Nope, $650 plus $30 of parking fees. So you could see I did not make a profit at this market at all. And that's okay, I guess. I did better than other vendors, so I'm not going to complain about it. I'm going to be grateful that I made the sales that I did. I was, you know, I took all of my sweatshirts and t-shirts, and I had $2,600 in sweatshirts of inventory and $308 of t-shirts. And I sold 2 sweatshirts, and you know, I was just like, wow, you know, everybody liked the designs, liked the colors, but again, I think it has to do with the inventory, and the younger crowd didn't have money, so it was more the older crowd that was buying. So what really sold? Let's take a look at this. I'm looking at what really sold. Like I said, I sold 2 sweatshirts, 1 t-shirt, 2 pot holders, 1 mini wallet, 1 tote bag, which I was surprised. Let's see. And the rest were all bowl cozies. And that just seems to be the thing that sells well with me. Are my bowl cozies. I always run out of bowl cozies. Like, I don't even think I have enough. Let me see, how much did I take of bowl cozies? I had $711 of bowl cozies. So with your, you know, you could see what I just said, what I sold. Majority of my sales were bowl cozies. Now I sell my bowl cozies for $12 each, or 4 for $40. And some people take advantage of the 4 for $40, and this market, they were doing 1 or 2. You know, I had a few people that let's see, that had the 4, but majority of the time it was 1 or 2, not 4. So, you know, if they had done the 4, then I probably would have been ahead, but it left me in the red. So again, with that being said, I probably would not do this market again, just because of the cost, and that I had to pay parking on top of that, and that the market really isn't catered to, well, this, you know, they only do the holidays. So, you know, I got the email for, you know, look out for the new, you know, for 2026. I'm not looking out for that one because I don't want it. Now, I was still hoping to get into the December market that's in Salem. I'm hoping that keep my fingers crossed that they call me and take me off the wait list, because that market I heard does really well. They open up the 2 buildings, and then, you know, there's tons of customers. But again, it could be the economy as well. You know, economy is not doing well. But when you see, like, I watch a lot of small business vlogs, and you see that they're actually making money at these booths, but they don't tell you what they paid for the booth. They just have a video of them checking out customers, but again, you don't know what the cost was, how much did they sell, did they profit, was it, you know, something that, where is this at, right? So I shared my numbers with you, and now you know. And you know what my best sellers were. Now, a lot of my customers were asking me for potato warmers and tea towel hangers, bigger bowl cozies, smaller bowl cozies, ice cream cozies, plate cozies, like all the cozies. And I was just like, oh my Lord. And that was something that I was trying to fade out of my business. I didn't want to do any more bowl cozies. because I noticed, like, well, when I was in Texas, I was like the only one, and up until like my last market, then I was like, there was someone else. But now, and I think my first market here, no, my second market here, there was another lady who had bowl cozies too, but for some reason I was selling a lot. And I don't know if it's because the size of my bowl cozies compared to hers, or the price. And I don't know what her price was, but I was trying to get away from selling bowl cozies and doing other things, but that didn't happen. And the other thing is, like, I saw everyone looking at the square makeup bags, and you know, I priced them at $55 because the fabric that I got wasn't like the Hobby Lobby fabric. It was, some of it was, but most of it was not. And you know, paying $14.99 a yard for fabric is expensive. And so I priced it at $55, but I noticed people were coming in and they were looking at it but weren't buying it. And even on Sunday, well, Sunday was more people going straight to the bowl cozies. But on Sunday, I did, you know, was trying to see, well, what I say, $40, maybe they'll buy it. So I was saying sweatshirts and you know, little makeup bags are $40 today because it was Sunday, the last day. And that still didn't help. I was just like, okay, I don't know, maybe it's the market, maybe it's the economy, maybe it's both. I don't know. But you see other people selling their makeup bags at $55, which, you know, isn't a bad price because it's handmade and the fabric is expensive. The batting is expensive. Not the batting, but the interface is expensive. Zippers, you know, if you're doing zipper by the yard, all of those things. And your time, your time is worth it, right? So I didn't think it was a bad price. But then I was like, you know what, I'm going to lower the prices for if I get it accepted in the next market, because I think $45 would be a good price point for those bags. And I think I even lowered it on my website because I was like, yeah, let me just lower these. And the denim, the embroidered denim makeup bags, I think I'm going to do $55 on. I had them at $65 because it's denim. That's more expensive. It's embroidered, you know, all of the things. So I think I'm just gonna leave those at $55. I'm gonna lower them to $55. I think I did already, but so yeah, that was how my market experience was. And you know, pricing, I feel like right now with the way the economy is, the lower your prices depending on your area, the more sales you can probably get, is what I'm thinking. Because my area, I'm seeing they don't want to shop. They don't want to pay. They're looking for deals. So you know what they're going to do? They're going to go to Target. They're going to go to TJ Maxx. They're going to go to all the places that have the sales, and not support a small business, because of course we need to make money, and especially if that's your only source of income. And I understand the pricing, and I feel like it's worth, you know, whatever it is that you price it at. But some people, you got to keep in mind your area and the economy, because it just doesn't, I feel like, you know, everybody is struggling right now. Luckily for me, I have a full-time job, so you know, 9 to 5, and I'm grateful for that, because otherwise I mean, you saw I went upside down. Yeah, I sold stuff, but nothing that was going to keep my business alive. So we're gonna do some rethinking here, and I'm probably going to only do certain markets and not try to get into all the markets, because that's what I was trying to do. But being new to Oregon, I don't really know all the areas yet, and I don't know, like, you know, if I go to this area, will I sell? Or if I go to that area, you know, is it a good neighborhood? Is it a good area? Because I know there was one place I wasn't a sell. It was in Portland, but it was like in downtown Portland, and I was just like, oh no. My husband and I drove out there, and I was like, yeah, I'm so glad, because you would have to park away and then take your product. But there's a lot of homeless in that area, like a ton of homeless, not just a handful, and it's kind of scary. So I was like, yeah, no, I won't sell here. So yeah, there's that. There's the recap. Let me know if you do markets, if you're a small business, how are you doing, you know, without having to share any numbers if you don't feel comfortable. Just, you know, comment below if your market area and if your customers are buying, or maybe it's just this area. I don't know, but just let me know in the comments below if you are a small business and how your business is going. Just say good, okay, struggling, whatever you want to say, if you want to share. And I'll talk to you in the next one.